Hello and welcome. This is The Onside Kick, an NFL podcast brought to you by Fox Sports Australia. I'm your host, Chris Janssen, and with me is my good friend, Ted Smith. How you doing, Ted?
I'm good, Chris.
That's good. And how are you, Hugo?
Yeah, not bad, boys. Thanks for having me. A lot to get through today, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I have some exciting news, which is we will have our first special guest this week. Hugo, you were our first special guest a few weeks ago. But Melbourne Demons defender Stephen May will be joining us later in the show.
He is definitely more special than me. Premiership winner, so will be good to chat to him. Big Bears fan as well, so.
Yep.
You're taller though.
I'm taller, but he's definitely a better footy player than I am. I'll give him that.
And the jury will be out on who actually has better NFL input as well.
I think he'll give me a good run for money, so anyway.
And besides that, as usual, we will be getting through a few of the most spectacular games from last week. There'll be a little review of our Australians as well before we take a look ahead to Week 10. I can't wait, so let's jump straight in. First game off the bat that I want to talk about. Everybody loves the Dallas Cowboys having a little bit of a choke, except, of course, if you're one of their fans. But for everyone else in the NFL world, nothing better than basically one of the now not-so-strong teams, Denver Broncos, who've been up and down. They had 3 good wins at the start of the season against 3 poor oppositions, and then they had a little run of losses, but now they've come back with a big win and a seriously impressive result against the Cowboys. What do we think, gents?
It was a massive win. It was just last week I was saying that the Broncos were the clear losers in the AFC West. I was really writing them off for the season.
You still might be right, but
I still think I am right, but this was a hugely surprising upset. Just number one, to lead 16-0 at halftime and then end up winning 30-16. Dak Prescott was completely shut down for the first 3.5 quarters. And then he finally got going towards the end. But it was the Broncos defense, especially without Von Miller, who's gone to your Rams, Ted.
Yeah.
It was amazing to see just how they shut the Cowboys down.
well, the Bronkies, which is what I like to call them. No, the Broncos rookie Jonathan Cooper, who was essentially Miller's replacement in this, sacked Dak Prescott twice. So that's good signs for the future because they did just lose the face of their franchise. And someone who has been the face of their franchise since he got drafted by the Broncos, 2011? Around about then.
Super Bowl MVP.
Exactly, Super Bowl MVP and all-round nice dude. Like it usually matters when someone with that gravitas leaves a locker room, especially one like Denver where the message is when you push your best player out halfway through the season that you're kind of given up on the year. To turn that around within a few days and be like, not only are we not giving up, like we're going to be up 30-0 over Dallas in the second half. I know the Bills just got knocked off by the stinky Jags, but to me, this is right there with one of the biggest upsets of the year. They had the best of. A lot of people considered them one of the best teams in the NFL. But a lot of people thought they had the best offense in the NFL.
Yeah.
They could not get it done against a Broncos team where their defense has struggled since week 3.
Yeah.
Week 4, they won their first three games, and they have stunk since. Not on the weekend, though. Ultra impressive.
Yeah, they were counted out, basically, like we said. But
now everyone's on 5 wins in that division.
Was this more a case of the Cowboys being unimpressive, or did the Broncos really come out and show us?
Look, as much as I want to give credit to Teddy Bridgewater, who's done very well.
No turnovers, played well.
Yeah, no turnovers. Very, very solid quarterback, and I think the Panthers are regretting letting him go at the moment with everything that's happening there. But, the Cowboys did not look good.
They just had a win with the replacement Red Rocket last week.
Yeah.
The backup QB. I literally can't remember his name.
Cooper Rush.
Do you think Dak was ready to play? He didn't seem like it. He seemed, didn't seem to kind of take the game on as he normally does. And it obviously didn't help that Zeke was doing nothing as well in the backfield.
It could be a case, we spoke about it a few weeks ago, how teams, when they have a run of opposition that's actually like a playoff team or title contenders, that they'll come across a team like the Denver Broncos and they won't prepare for them like they do when you're playing a Dallas or an LA or a Buccaneers. Everyone on the staff, the team and the coaching team, they're all in on these big games, and then you come across the Denver Broncos team and you best come correct, because as we've just seen from week 9, it has shown us more than any other week that I can actually remember since I've started following the NFL. anything can happen if you don't come correct. The Jags can even beat the Bills. Denver can be up 30-0 against Dallas in Dallas.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, the Colts can beat the Jets. Oh, actually, wait, don't. that's pretty.
Tennessee can make the Rams look like Jeff Fisher's Rams.
Unreal.
Yeah, the Cowboys with the bus back to Dallas thinking, oh, the Denver Broncos. But another game that was...
90s kid joke.
Another game that was equally as stinky on paper, but ultimately ended up being one of the shock results of the weekend. It was a big weekend of upsets, actually. Was the stinky Jags, as Ted likes to call them, coming up against everyone's beloved Buffalo Bills. And the Bills put up one of their worst offensive performances in the past probably 3 or 4 seasons.
I mean, try and think of a worse one.
Yeah.
You got to go back to when Tyrod Taylor was running the show, I think. They didn't score a touchdown. To say it's a massive shock is an understatement. Going into this game, it felt right, just being like, yeah, the Bills are probably the best team in the AFC. It's like the Ravens have got a good record, but they've been close in every game they've in. They got no running backs, but the Bills look ready to go. Like Josh Allen, we all expected him to be in the chat for MVP this season. And after this loss, you look at it and you're like, okay, well, they're still what? 5-3, 6-3. But then you go back and ask yourself, what's their signature win for this year? Who have they beaten?
Yeah.
The Dolphins?
Twice. They've beaten the Texans. They've beaten Kansas City, who weren't even 500 when they played them, or around about 500. They haven't beaten any big dogs. They got beat by Pittsburgh, right? Yeah, there's a chance that we've overestimated the Bills, because when you look at them, we're still running off the fumes of last year's Bills team that were really impressive. But when you compare this team to last year's, it's like, well, their offense, it's not that they're not as good. Sometimes they're nowhere near as good.
Yeah.
So the Bills had a bunch of tin cans in terms of opponents coming up, but they just got waxed by one of the tin cans. So all of a sudden, these next few weeks for the Bills, they're massive.
Yeah.
They're massive.
I'm worried that the defining moment for the Bills this season will be that 4th and 1 against the Titans, where they went for it, didn't kick the
on
field
goal.
Oh yeah,
on the goal line.
Oh yeah, on the goal line. Yeah, but it was 4th and 1. I'm pretty sure, because they still could get the first down and not score the touchdown. 4th, yeah, but basically
you got to go for that. Josh Allen is one of the best.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. But it, like, those things you live and die by. It reminds me of that Patriots Colts game where Belichick went for it 4th and 2 against the Colts, and then that was the
back in the day in his own half.
Yeah, half, 2009.
Yeah.
You look at this and you wonder, like, even against the Jags, like, Bills couldn't score a touchdown. And you look at that, like, Josh Allen, the best quarterback in the game.
There were no touchdowns in this game.
Yeah.
The Jags got 3 field goals.
Yeah.
So what was that guy's name? He got them the win in London, their field goal kicker.
Lambo.
Well, one of the best free agent signings of the season. He's got them 2 wins. They've only got 2 wins.
Fun fact, I'm pretty sure Josh Lambo started his career in the MLS playing goalkeeper.
Oh.
Okay, that's mad.
That's mad. Jack of all trades.
What isn't great is the congestion of the middle of the AFC.
Yeah.
Now, the Bills, who, again, we thought were the best team in the AFC just a week ago, now they're on the same amount of wins as the Browns, the Steelers, the Broncos, the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Pats. It is congested. They have a fight on their hands, and it does not take long to work out that you get surprised by how wrong your narratives were just a fortnight ago.
Yeah.
And I will say this about the Jags before we move on. We thought he was going to get sacked, right? But it looks like he's going to survive the bump and grind of his first NFL season. I think the pressure's starting to ease for the former college football national champion. They've improved their win total by 100% over last year. And they just had their first signature win since Blake Bortles beat the Steelers in the 2017 division round of the playoffs, sorry. So big uptick for him. Crazy. Josh Allen threw 2 interceptions to Lawrence's 0. That was the big difference in the end. And Josh Allen of the Bills wasn't the best Josh Allen on the Sunday.
Such an incredible storyline.
Mate.
Yeah. Picked off, sacked twice. Oh, incredible. Just quickly, full credit to Ted, who last week predicted the Patriots could beat the Bills in the AFC East. It is going to be one to watch. They play each other twice over the next 5 weeks. That is seriously going to be a battle to see who can claim the king of the AFC East.
It still feels like the Bills have got enough talent around that roster.
But while they're stinking, mate, let's sink the boot in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've had a good run. Let's get them.
Their D is still very strong. So that's the thing. They'll always keep them in games in when the offense doesn't fire.
Yeah.
But you'd have to hope they do more than what they did, on Monday.
Or if I'd have told you at the start of the week that the Jags were going to score 9 points against the Bills, you'd probably predicted a 40-9 win for the Bills or something like that.
You could tell 1,000 humans that, and 1,000 would tell you that the Bills are going to walk away with a win.
Yeah. One game which was significantly much more high-scoring than that one was Monday Night Football, which was the Steelers against the Bears, which turned out to be an absolute thriller. On paper, before the game, we might have thought maybe a little bit of Urban Meyer about this, bit of bump and grind through the 4 quarters, but it turned out to be a back and forth, especially by the time it got to the second half. Justin Fields really started to come into the second half, and especially in the fourth quarter when he seemed to almost suddenly remember that Allen Robinson is a top wide receiver and probably just target him as the get out of jail free card. Besides that, though, I want to lead with what I thought was most noticeable and what there was a lot of chatter about afterwards was the first quarter, almost on and off, was taken up entirely by the backstory of Najee Harris, which I'm sure at this point we've heard, right? It's been 8 games now in the season.
Fabricated.
Yeah, and that is the most disappointing part, to then find out that there are so many little layers that they're trying to add on to an already miraculous and impressive story. We don't need to come up with these suggestions that he wouldn't have slept in his bed in college, which just when you hear that for the first time, it would take a simple fact check to be like, not sure if the stud running back for Alabama, who probably had quite a nice room, I'm guessing, on campus, for him to get in and look at the bed and be like, nah.
Yeah. The star running back can't see the benefit of mattress over hardwood.
Yeah.
What kind of headline's that? Like, I mean, can you imagine being him and hearing that and being like, I slept on a bed. Like, why would you make that up about me? Yeah. It was weird. I thought the agenda was clear. But in terms of the game, something that I thought was clear was the importance of the rookie tight end for Ben Roethlisberger.
Pat Frymouth.
Yeah, he's been outstanding. I got some numbers here. He only averaged 49% of the Steelers' offensive snaps over the first 5 weeks. That's been bumped up to 70% over their last 3 games. First 5 weeks again, Steelers were 2-3 while he was averaging 2 catches a game. He'd only had 1 touchdown in those first 5 weeks. Over the last 3 weeks, it's over 5 catches a game. It's a touchdown a game. Steelers have not lost any of those games. We didn't realise how much Ben needed a security blanket until we saw what he's doing with Frymouth at the moment. But yeah, again, to add on to what you were saying, looking at this game going into it, it's like, this will probably be shit. That you got a quarterback that's too old to be good. You got a quarterback that's too inexperienced to be good, and the Steelers should dominate whatever's left, right? But it ended up a battle, and to everyone's surprise, the quarterback play wasn't too bad in this game. And Justin Fields, I think he's had his best 2 games over the last 2 weeks, which is what you want as a Chicago Bears fan. It's actually exactly what you want, because you want to go to the game and cheer Justin Fields, but you also want to boo Nagy, right? So getting 27 points out of your rookie QB and a loss is actually what you go to bed and pray for as a Chicago fan.
Yeah, obviously, some of the big talking points were the flags as well.
Yeah,
stinky flags too.
Oh, absolutely stinky flags, and there's been a lot of talk about it. And wanted to get your take on it. What did you think? About did the refs really take the fizz out of that game?
Yeah, yes. I'm glad you brought it up. And yes, even you can always tell, I find, when the commentators struggle to be impartial about the officiating. And by the time it got to the fourth quarter and they put that graphic up on screen, which at that point was the Bears had 10 flags for 100+ yards, and Pittsburgh had 2, I think, for about 20. And it's like, obviously, yes, that can happen, but typically in an NFL game, there's holding both ways. You know, there's fouls both ways, there's penalties both ways. But at this point, it started to look a little bit suspicious. And I'm not saying that they would go out there and pick a team to try and, you know, help that team win. But the fact that there was so much difference between who was getting the calls against them and the way that some of them went down, the low block foul, which was, oof,
it was a low brush. Yeah. He barely touched him.
The 2 roughing the passer calls on Fields back to back.
The taunt, that was it.
The second one on Fields especially, where he made helmet-to-helmet contact with his chin.
Yeah.
And Fields gets up in slow motion and looks at him and he says, "Is that not a flag?" And the ref, no.
It's like, how can you not miss anything and miss that?
And then, of course, as you alluded to, the biggest one was the Cassius Marsh taunting, which this is what I'll say on that. They've been strict on that all year. We know that that's the new rule. Anytime you make a movement towards an opposition player to stand over or to be aggressive or assert dominance or whatever, they have thrown a flag for that. What I didn't like about this was that he didn't seem to make any kind of verbal or physical movement. He took, a few more steps towards the sideline and had a little half flex. But if he isn't actually physically, or if he isn't actually taunting, he can't throw.
Who's he taunting?
He can't throw a taunting flag. We love those sort of.
What's more important to football? Like fans having a genuine reaction to an awesome play, or the flag? It's like, mate, you've killed millions of vibes. Literally.
They asked the official after the game why he did it, and he said,
"Mate, why did you do it?"
A point of emphasis throughout the season, but. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And the problem is that now the referees are going into the game, focusing on that, and they're deflating the passion in the game.
Yeah.
And not just that, but as he was throwing the flag, the little hip check which he threw out to...
Don't you enjoy it, mate? Yeah. Don't you dare enjoy throwing that flag.
And the ref said that had nothing to do with it, but it definitely has something to do with it. Anyway.
The problem was the ref moved into Marsh. Marsh held his line and was just running off the field. But then, wasn't it just the most soul-destroying thing to watch? To see this guy has finally made like a big play and everyone's excited for him and he gets over and the coach is chewing him out on the sideline.
Soul-destroying.
Yeah. I mean, that's another bad look for the coach, in my opinion.
But for more on this game, I'm very excited at this point to now bring in our special guest, our first ever special guest, AFL Premiership player for the Melbourne Demons and long-time Chicago Bears fan. So I'm pretty sure he's going to have some juicy things to add on this game. Stephen May. We'll start from the top, which is that I'd been told that you were a Bears fan, but I've noticed today you're rocking the Myles Garrett jersey for us. Is that because the Bears are too disappointing to get around at the moment?
Yeah, they're too frustrating, man. And, it's been a tough road ever since I've supported them. But it's hard to, I do love the Bears, but I also just like individual star players from other teams. So I tend to buy those jerseys a lot.
And we saw your tweet from the game between the Bears and the Steelers, which was how we learned of your Bears love. And it's safe to say you weren't too pleased with the officiating from the game.
Look, it was 2 parts to it. The Bears' discipline was terrible. There's so many flags, I think it was like 130 yards of penalties. So that on itself. But then just like the taunting call in the heat of the game, read the room type of thing, and it wasn't even there really. And the fact that Fields is getting knocked down after he threw the ball all day, and then like we had him third down, sacked him, we're getting the ball back, and then it ended up getting a 15-yard penalty, get the field goal, and we end up losing by a point. It's just a snowball effect, but not taking away that we were pretty bad with the way our discipline was, like not even lining up on side. But yeah, sometimes the NFL referees they make it about them. I think sometimes like they try and implement a new rule and they just try and overdo it to reiterate their point.
Would you compare the taunting flags to a 50-metre penalty in the AFL? Which is more frustrating?
Oh yeah, that when the stand rule came in,
Yeah.
and someone's running past and they're not even in the play and they pay 50, and that was sort of a similar thing. It's like, come on, it has no impact on the game, but the umpires get told a certain thing, so they try and run it as much as they can.
Mate, the referees are definitely having a stinky season. Someone else who's having a stinky season is Julio Jones with a dodgy hamstring, which, Stephen May obviously playing with one leg to win a grand final. Do you think it's a bit soft for Julio to miss weeks at a time when you barely missed a minute, mate?
No, they're very explosive players, and they're going flat out every single play. I don't even know how they play sometimes with hammies. Like I was able to, sort of work my way into a game and sort of play on someone, Aaron Norton, take him deep and sort of sit off him and catch him if he came. Whereas these guys are, running flat out when they're running their routes. And I don't know how they could be. It must be really minor because there's no way you'd have the power.
Steve, just want to bring back to the Bears as well now. So Justin Fields, obviously so much hype coming into the league as a first-round pick. How have you found his season so far, and are you excited about what he's got to bring?
He's definitely an exciting player. He's not your traditional, pocket passer. He's a dual threat. Like last week, I think he had 130 yards, but he had 105 rushing. So I prefer to throw the ball a bit more. But then again, our O-line sucks. Like it's so bad, and it's getting injured. We got injuries all the time. So having a quarterback like that who can actually make plays with his legs and improvise is helping us keep us in games, I suppose, and be competitive. If we just had Dalton playing at the moment, he'd be getting chewed up with that O-line. They really doesn't have much time at all. So when I watched the Bucks versus the Bears, and old man Brady just standing in the pocket for like 6 seconds, and I just feel for Fields, he has like 2 seconds to get rid of the ball or he's gone. So I am excited for him, but we need to get him some help, no doubt.
It was another tough day to be a Bears fan. How long have you suffered along with Chicago?
I became a Bears fan in 2008. I was a mad Brian Urlacher fan, and like Lance Briggs and Peanut Tillman. So we had a pretty good team, and made the NFC conference final. And then I thought, this is going to be good. It's a good team. I love the history. And then from then it's just, not too much has come of it. And we've just been, I suppose, cursed with quarterbacks, or just not picking the right ones, or draft picks. Like the double doink. Oh man, that was the most frustrating bit, because like you play the whole game or the whole seasons, and to have your kick and miss when they're so automatic these days. Although there's been a few missing lately, but it wouldn't be easy being a kicker at Soldier Field. I understand that.
Yeah, and there's a fair few boys in the NFL with Aussie rules foundations. Have you ever thought about making the switch yourself?
The next Sav. In
my head, I'd love to play NFL or go over there and even just go to a training camp or something, just to like experience it, because I'm a mad NFL fan. I watch as much programs and that's coverage as I can. But yeah, just sort of going over there, and I'm in a group fantasy league with Ben Graham. So just picking his brain and listening to how he speaks about the game and that sort of thing, it's pretty interesting. Because there's a lot more that goes on than what you see on Madden or you see on Good Morning America or whatever. So it does look. It would be pretty fun, but obviously it's a lot harder than it seems.
Yeah, is it something that gets brought up amongst the players here and there? Potentially playing, or as in players in the AFL, potentially playing or going over to train in the NFL?
They sort of, you throw it up like, that'd be pretty cool, or you could probably have a crack at that or that sort of thing. But it's a huge risk, and you got to sort of do it when you're mid-20s or sort of when they're in their prime, because that's when they're all in their prime. And some guys with big kicks think about it, but I think once it gets time to actually do it, like it's about getting on the plane and going over and risking whatever you've got just to have a crack. Which I know some people at the end of their careers, maybe they don't have much to risk, but someone in their prime, they try to get a new contract or whatever. It's probably like my mate Trent McKenzie. He was thinking about it, and he's got a massive kick, and he was on the verge of getting a new contract with Port. So he was like, hurry up. And then he ended up getting a contract and playing playing most of the season. So, but I reckon he'll be a guy that probably goes over at the end because, he's got a huge kick.
Is it something that you wish there was a more clear pathway for the AFL boys to, as you say, once they get to those sort of dwindling years, if they could then go over, they've still got all the skills. And one thing I like the most is you spent your whole life training with all of this different skill set to then get over there and for them to be like, look, mate, just punt it as far as you can. That must be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if there was something in the off season you could go and try out or practice with some experts who who know their stuff over there and could, so I guess you wouldn't waste your time going over if they actually, say, oh, I think you've got a chance or you should give it a crack versus, I suppose not knowing and thinking, everyone thinks, oh, I could do that. And then like you get over there and you got pads on and, you got a certain amount of seconds to kick the ball and you need to get hang time versus distance. And there's all these, and, to kick to your coverage. There's all these little things that we probably don't understand, as well, since we haven't grown up with it.
Yeah.
I've got one for you, Steve. Simple one, mate. If the Bears don't make the Super Bowl this year, mate, who's your pick? NFC, AFC?
Well, my preseason picks were the Tennessee and the Cardinals. Were AFC and NFC.
Safe.
Cardinals.
Safe picks.
Well, yeah, I picked them at the start of the year because I thought Kyler Murray would be, take it up level, and their defense is really solid. And I just love Derrick Henry, and the Titans' defense is starting to click now. And then it didn't look good early. They looked a bit dodgy, but now they're starting to hit some form. So I'm liking those early picks.
I've got one as well. If you were to play in the NFL and you weren't going to be a punter, what position would you like to be?
QB.
Oh yeah, I'd love to be like a linebacker probably. Like to have like to rush the quarterback, but also sit in the coverage, try and get interception. Or like if I was a bit small, I guess probably like a safety. I think that would be cool. Like just roaming in the backfield, waiting for the long ball.
So as you've seen in American sport, have you and a few of the other boys now started going around and labeling yourselves as AFL world champions?
It's fun. It's funny. I wish someone said that actually. Like we're world champs, and I was like, well, yeah. They said like, will America do it? Like the NFL teams call themselves world champions, and it's called American football. So it's pretty funny. No, we just take the piss. We wouldn't say that.
Well, how is the vibe around the team now heading into the new season? What are the expectations for the reigning world champions?
Well, we got to do it again, I guess. We want to, like that feeling in these last few weeks, and like the celebrations and it's just amazing. And, you should always wonder about winning a flag and how it would feel, but until you do it, and now you just want that feeling again. You're just chasing that same feeling, and to do it, like I said before, to do it in front of your home crowd. A lot of people have been going through a lot of tough times. We've got a big job to do to get ourselves in position to compete again.
Mate, big props, much appreciation, and congratulations, dude. Big move from the Gold Coast. I'm sure that took a lot. Paid off, brother. Well done.
Thank you, fellas. Cheers. Take care.
Thanks, mate.
From one Aussie potential NFL player of the future to our current ones, our Aussie watch for this week. Michael Dixon, everyone's favourite Australian punter, unfortunately had a bye, so we can't bring you any of his glorious inside 20 stats.
I'm a Wisniewski fan myself. I'll just throw it out there.
Okay. Yeah. My apologies then.
Yeah.
Adam Gotsis, I want to firstly apologise. I said he was a DNP last week, but actually he just had no stats. So that's on me.
Yeah.
That might be worse.
But he was great this week.
Yeah.
Had a Jags defense against the Bills.
Played 36% of snaps, which is a slight improvement for him actually, and he had a QB hit on Josh Allen, who didn't have a great game, but good to see Gotsis getting through and actually having pressures. Mailata, as usual now, which is a habit, played every single snap of the offense plus some special team snaps for Philly, who were just beaten out by the Chargers in a very close game. But again, the run game was super impressive despite that loss because they're matching up against Joey Bosa, who they managed to keep to one sack, which was not on Mailata's side. So Mailata, again, had a very, very impressive game. Sipsis as well, playing for Philly, only had to punt 3 times. One inside 20, but yeah, the loss ultimately at the end of it. Maybe if he could have got a few extra few extra yards on some of the punts. Mitch Wisnowski, Tad's favourite punter, had a big 4 punts on a 40.8 yard average, 2 inside 20, but again, another Aussie losing. They're making a habit of this in the past couple of weeks. Lost to the Cards. Cam Johnson, who plays for the Texans, may not surprise you. He also had a loss playing for the Texans. But another big week for him, 5 punts, 235 yards on a 47-yard average. Our Australian of the week this week, I'm going to give it to Adam Gotsis.
Oh, absolutely.
Mostly because I feel bad about what happened last week.
Yeah.
So,
but also, back-to-back winners, as you said.
Yeah.
Held the Bills to 6 points, 36% of snaps. A lot of 3 symmetry there, so, that's what we want.
He's looking good. Hopefully he can keep it rolling as we continue through the season, which leads us now coming in to week 10. A few more very good matchups this week. One that jumped out to me specifically is the New England Patriots at home in Boston to the Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Browns have been a complete mixed bag from one week to the next. You do not know what you're going to get. I think it was on last week's pod that we said, where are they? Oh my goodness, they've had these terrible results. Then they come out with just a hugely impressive win this week, beating the Bengals 41-16 off a 3-team performance as well, I would say. Special offense, defense, all had a role to play in that. It wasn't just a case of one of them doing all of the work. And now we say that this is the most exciting time for these two teams to match up. I think the Patriots really starting to look good. And the Browns, you don't know what you're going to get, so it could be anything. The biggest news of this is that Nick Chubb has contracted COVID. He has been vaccinated, so he just needs to have 2 negative results back-to-back, which he hasn't produced yet. But there is still time for that to come out. Otherwise, it's a chance, yet another chance for everyone's favourite RB3 in the NRL, Dearness Johnson. What do we think here, boys? Baker versus Mac, Belichick against his old team. What are we saying?
Oh, it's a great game in terms of we can see who is a contender this season, and literally whoever wins is well in the hunt. Whoever loses might be a bit more difficult. Just on the Nick Chubb thing, if he plays, he's obviously one of the best running backs in the league.
Yeah.
Dearness Johnson up against the Patriots D, who have always been stingy against the rush. That'll be interesting. So let's hope, in terms of a fan's sake, that Nick Chubb plays. But we've got to mention Baker Mayfield. Like, everyone was, all these fans coming out, you either love Baker or you hate Baker. And lots of people were saying, was he the man? He put basically all that to bed on the weekend. And yes, it was a solid performance, and the defense did their part. But what it showed is that Baker, when the chips are down, he can perform if they need. Yeah.
And like we said last week when we were talking about the Browns, how quickly the fans that hate him forget how poor they were for literally decades.
Yeah.
So if they can get a win over the Pats this week, they're 6-4. They're feeling pretty good about their season, given that they had some bumps in the road at the start. Speaking about those bumps, obviously one that we should talk about, Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, absolutely.
No longer being at the Browns. It's only one game, literally the smallest sample size you can consume. But it did look like the chemistry had improved in that Browns camp. Their offense had played better than it has this entire season. Is it a coincidence that this person that has been accused of being somewhat toxic in that locker room, now that he's left, the team looks like they've blossomed? It'll seem that way for sure if the Browns get a big win over the Pats this week. The Pats, who themselves started 1-3, and we're like, man, did Bill do anything in those 6 Super Bowls? Like, bruh. But he has shown us that if he's got a quarterback that does not turn the ball over, and if he's got a defense that is playing the way that he wants, that is scheming the correct way that he prepares for every week, doesn't matter what team, he's going to prepare for that team. We know the narrative. He's reminding us how good he is as a coach on that defensive end, and getting his team to come correct after the first month.
The next game I would like to look at with you, gentlemen, is the Green Bay Packers at home this week, facing off with the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks were very highly touted at the start of the season and now have fallen completely almost off the rails, I would say. A bye week, though, to help them get back on track. I presume Russell might now be good
Russell
enough to
is
go.
back. He's not officially off IR yet, but he's training and he's declared on social media that he's back. Could be Russell v Aaron Rodgers, which we know will be really interesting. In terms of the Packers, I did say last week I was very excited about Jordan Love. Just want to clarify that. I was excited because no matter what happens, and this is what we got, it was going to be box office. He was not good.
Yeah.
He was not good. He did not look good at all. And basically, as soon as they get Aaron Rodgers back, the better. I heard him speak yesterday. He might not be available, might need to sit out another week, but if he's even 10% able to play, they're throwing him in because Jordan Love is not ready.
The most worrying part of this for me is, as you said, Jordan Love already sat on the bench the entirety of last season as an understudy. He's sat on the bench for another 6 or 7 games, and you said that he came into this game and he didn't look ready, which you can't give quarterbacks much more than 18 months, a season and a half to still not be ready.
And into a good team. Like he's not running out there for the Jags.
And
like back-to-back NFC games, NFC title games.
And to come in against one of the worst defenses in the league,
they
put up 7 points.
Right there in the conversation for the worst defense.
And then the final game of the week turns out to be a little bit of a showpiece game. Monday Night Football, Tuesday, midday, and 15 minutes for us. Strange way to say it, 12:15, just to clarify. It is the 49ers at home in San Francisco. Divisional game against the Los Angeles Rams. Very short little trip. Nice little away trip for Los Angeles. 49ers coming off a relatively disappointing loss to the Cardinals, to the Colt McCoy-led Cardinals.
I don't know what you'd relate it to. It was straight up disappointing. Like you can't lose to Colt McCoy in 2021.
Maybe 6 years ago, you reckon?
Not if you even then, not if you want to get out of your division. The 49ers, I mean, Dolphins have been disappointing this year. People had them as a potential playoff contender. Then it's got to be the 49ers for me in terms of where we had them at the start of the season and where we are at the midpoint, 3-5. Their wins are questionable. Their losses are obvious. They just got waxed by a team riddled with backups. No DeAndre Hopkins last week either. No AJ Green. No Kyler Murray. Doesn't matter. We'll beat you by 2 smackdown touchdowns. But with that said, this game is just as big for the Rams as it is for the 49ers. This surprised me when I looked it up last night. The Rams have not beaten the 49ers in their last 4 starts. The 49ers are going for their 5th consecutive win over the Rams, and that's Sean McVay Rams, the dude, something like 41, 42-0 with halftime leads. Someone that's 8-1 versus Arizona, their other division rival. Someone that's got the wood over Pete Carroll. He does not have the wood over Shanahan, and he doesn't come close to 49ers usually. He's been waxed sometimes against them. So given that, and given that the Rams lost last week, lost probably isn't the right word, got absolutely pumped by the Titans, it's a sneaky big week for the Rams that want to re-establish themselves as an elite team in the NFC. There with Tampa Bay, there with Dallas, there with Arizona, there with Green Bay. If you lose this week, all of a sudden you're not there. And just like that, it's almost impossible for you to get a bye in the first round of the playoffs. So it's a big week for the Rams. And for the 49ers, they're just bailing water out of a sinking ship at the moment. The 49ers went into the season and it's like, oh, what a headache to have. We've got 2 quarterbacks. You don't have any. That's what it looks like. Jimmy G ain't it. Not anymore. He just looked like someone who could get you into a Super Bowl, and that was because we saw it happen. But since then, he has not looked like that quarterback. And Trey Lance, he looks like a rookie that has only played 1 college game in the last 18 months and started 2 NFL games in which he got hurt and which he struggled. Oh, mate, the 49ers, like I said to open this chat about this team, may be the biggest disappointment from the 2021 season.
That is the Tuesday morning game, afternoon now with daylight saving for us. 12:15, as I mentioned. That will be a blockbuster. I look forward to that. But as we talked about, there are a bunch of good matchups throughout the weekend. Gentlemen, I hope you get a chance to watch as many as possible. And I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Cheers, mate.
Can't wait. Thanks for having us.
See you, gents.